The mystery of the ancient civilization of Atlantis and its sudden disappearance into the depths of the ocean have captured the imagination of thousands. The first writings about the lost city of Atlantis come from the famous book Dialogues, written by the Greek philosopher Plato in the 4th century BC. According to Plato, the stories of Atlantis were passed to him by his grandfather, who had heard the story about ancient Atlantis from the Athenian statesman called Solon, who learned about the existence of Atlantis from an Egyptian priest who claimed that Atlantis existed 9,000 years ago before that. So before you turn on your Aquaman mode and find Atlantis, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to join Googleplex. The story goes that when Poseidon first took responsibility for the well-being of Atlantis, he fell in love with a mortal woman named Cleito. The fables tell that Cleito had 5 pairs of twin sons with Poseidon, the eldest of which was named Atlas. We can say that Atlas was half god of the sea and half man, or Aquaman. The 10 sons inherited the great city and the first child. Atlas became the first ruler of Atlantis. All these and their descendants for many generations were the inhabitants and rulers of Aquaman's islands in the open sea. The biggest questions that boggles minds of all the scientists is that where is Atlantis? The narration suggested that the so-called Atlantis was a large island located in front of the straits, known as the Pillars of Heracles, now known as the Strait of Gibraltar. Atlantis was, according to Plato, a stunningly gorgeous and opulent place, built upon concentric circles of land and water. It was wealthy and powerful beyond measure, until the whole thing went sideways and a cataclysm wiped the city of Atlantis off the map and out of the history books. Through violent earthquakes and floods, in a single day and night of misfortune, the whole race was swallowed up by the earth, and the island of Atlantis disappeared into the depths of the sea. Plato added that the city under the sea should have been somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. Since then, numerous hypotheses have circulated among scholars, researchers, and explorers about the existence and mysterious disappearance of the city continent. First, we tell you where the capital city of Atlantis is located. That is the ringed capital city called Atlantis with a diameter of 23 kilometers. It consists of a center island, 2 land rings, 3 water rings, and then the last outer ringed area is what we would call downtown Atlantis. Leaving the palace and passing out across the 3, you came to a wall, which began at the sea and went all around. The entire area was densely crowded with habitations, and the canal and the largest of the harbors were full of vessels and merchants coming from all parts, who from their numbers kept up a multitudinous sound of human voices and din and clatter of all sorts night and day. This is how Plato has described the city. Where would this city be today? Here is a NASA satellite photo on how Atlantis looks today, nearly 12,000 years after its destruction by an earthquake and subsequent tsunami. It looks rather washed out, doesn't it? This structure is called the Richat today and lies in Mauritania, a country in West Africa. For millennia, the eye of the Sahara was hiding in plain sight. That's because this huge and mysterious geologic formation is hard to spot from ground level, walking around on Earth. It turns out that we really discovered this incredible bullseye in the sand only when we began sending humans into space. But even now that we've found it, scientists don't fully understand it. Initially interpreted as an asteroid impact structure because of its high degree of circularity, and then as a structure formed via volcanic eruption that also seems improbable because of a lack of a dome of igneous or volcanic rock, and is now argued to be a highly symmetrical and deeply eroded geologic dome that collapsed. So it is now thought by many to have been caused by uplifted rock, sculpted by erosion. But the fact that the rings are equidistant to the center and that the Richat structure is nearly circular remains a mystery. And new questions arise. Some people are amazed by the resemblance of this structure with the representation we have of Atlantis by Plato. According to Plato, the island was circular, divided into concentric circles of land and water. There were 2 of land and 3 of water. The surrounding areas match the description of Atlantis fairly, note for note as well. Plato describes the city as being bordered to the north by mountains, notable for their great number and beauty. The Richat structure is indeed ringed by mountains to the north. It's very big. It also happens to be almost the exact same size as the measurements Plato gave for Atlantis. It is said clearly that these circular canals were not made by man, but by a god, or alternatively by natural forces, in very old times. Well, what happened to Earth? Let's begin with the celestial object with a tremendous impact on Earth. Yes, that is how we start. Massive impact caused the Earth crust to crack like an eggshell. The crack went around the Earth. This impact creates a super tsunami that devastated all small islands as well as all coastal areas around the world. The massive expanding ridges at the ocean floor began to push the newly created plates upward, pushing land and island into each other. Massive rain, tsunamis, earthquakes, and volcanic activities were at work shaping our planet, giving it a new face. The continuing expansion started to push the number of islands into what is today Africa. Atlantis, South Africa, and Madagascar are all pushed into each other, forming the continent of Africa. Slowly, the Americas start coming into today's shape. Lemuria has totally disappeared. India has become part of the continent, and Africa has almost swallowed Atlantis. The world has been forced to a new shape by a celestial object that may have wiped out most of the entire living thing over the land. It was catastrophic, of biblical proportions, that almost wiped out everything and everyone from the planet. If we move, the ridge grows back. Richat structure will be sitting on the Atlantic. Looking at the map including Spain, Richat structure will be sitting outside the Gibraltar. Here is part of North Africa, with two examples of ancient Atlantis maps. The shape, measurements, and the location of the primary city match perfectly. And finally, Plato's Atlantis disappeared and was submerged and reappears as part of North Africa. What do we know from Plato's descriptions? The residence of Atlas and his royal palace was situated not far from the sea on a hill, low on all sides in the center of the city, which was laid out in a circle. The circular central island was surrounded by 3 rings of water and 2 rings of land. Alternatively, the water rings were used as harbors and had access to the sea by a canal and passages connecting the water rings. The plain was surrounded on all sides by mountains that stretched towards the sea. They sheltered the plain, which faced south from the northern blasts. The mountain streams drained into a ring canal around the whole plain, discharging from both sides into the sea near the city. There were parallel canals at regular intervals, as well as connecting canals throughout the plain, forming a canal grid. The canals were used by boats to carry wood from the mountains to the city. That's quite a coincidence, isn't it? At the end, Plato was right about Atlantis. But until the truth beneath it can be completely unraveled, the world will continue to speculate about the existence of the greatest city of all times. Do you think that the Richat structure is the Lost City of Atlantis? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to give this video a like, share it with your friends, and click subscribe to stay with Googleplex.